The S&P market ended up going nowhere this week, but don't expect that to continue in September and October. Today is August 26th, and we've been predicting that there would be a little jump in the market in the middle of a corrective wave, and it happened on Friday. And since then, the market has been sagging down slowly, not dramatically. And it's the end of the summer. It's normal for the market to have this kind of doldrums at the end of the summer. And then right after Labor Day, very often, quite often, people get back to work on Wall Street and it gets wild. This year, even more wild than normal. We have a number of cycles that indicate the market should rally dramatically between now and the late part of October, early November. And we also said last, and we continue to think, we're in the middle of some kind of a corrective wave. It's probably a fourth wave correction, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And it will probably end either early or mid-September, after which a dramatic rally is expected, probably a fifth wave rally, probably very large. Remember, our target for the year was 7,600. That's pretty hard to imagine, but the market could do it. The next point I wanted to make is that some of the cycles that we're looking at and have been very reliable for a long period of time, the 60-year cycle, which we've talked about over and over again, and if you look at this picture, you can see it ultimately gradually goes down a little bit further into the middle part of September, and then it rallies strongly. It's still immensely correlated with the last 6 months and the last year and the last 5 years of the market action. And even on the day-by-day lately, which is unusual, it's still very close to what's actually happening. After that rally, however, we have a bear market starting. So we're looking for a big, explosive, final crescendo to this bull market that's been going on for many, many years, and most recently since 2022. And then in 2026 into 2027, a very meaningful bear market. What's interesting is 2 times the 60-year cycle is doing the same thing as the 60-year cycle, which means you have 2 iterations of a very large cycle that have been repeating with high correlation to the present, and they continue to correlate in the future. This is kind of an unusual situation. If it continues, you can see what might be the next 5 years of the market action, because they both agree, they generally agree, pretty much all the way until 2030 or longer. So it's an interesting anomaly that happens to be lining up right now, okay? So this is one cycle that we've been relying on. Also, astrologically, the month of September is full of change points that are important. We have the trine relationship between Jupiter and the North Node, which happens every 7 years. And most of the time, those things are extremely important. This one comes in on September 3rd, which is why we were thinking there might be a low on September 3rd. There's also there are 2 eclipses on the 7th and 23rd of September, which oftentimes create intense action. And the third thing, which is kind of unusual, which happens only once every 12 years, is when October 18th comes around, Jupiter goes into the sign of Cancer in the sidereal zodiac, and that's its exaltation sign. It's the most bullish, optimistic sign it can be in. It only lasts there until December 4th, and then it goes retrograde, goes back into a less favorable position. But that could exaggerate any upward movement that's taking place starting in September and continuing forward. We also mentioned last time that the 49-week cycle times 4 and times 6, they go up into the late part of October, and they've been on track for months, almost day by day. And the other things that we've been looking at are also aligning with the probabilities of a high in October or November rather than a low in October or November, which is usually the case seasonally. So this is an unusual year in terms of what we expect to happen. Okay? In terms of price levels, we were looking for the 6,700 level to happen to kind of assure us that we're going to have an explosion. We haven't seen it yet. We may not see it before any large move. But between now and the mid part of September, whatever correcting it will do is not likely to be very large, although it is still possible, I'd say a 40% chance, that we go back down into the 6,100 area on the S&P. which would be a normal fourth wave correction reaching the fourth wave of lesser degree. It's an Elliott wave rule. And that may or may not happen, but whether it does or not, the time is going to run out in September, and then the rally will begin and continue dramatically, potentially through the late part of October, even into November. And with the Jupiter exaltation, it might even extend further. All right. So that's kind of the lay of the land for the next month or two. After Labor Day, expect things to heat up dramatically. There's too much going on. There's so many astrological events that are all happening within a few weeks of each other that it's difficult to even isolate one thing or another thing. They're all there. Chaos will resume. And in the past, with this particular set of configurations, with the Jupiter Rahu position, the Saturn Rahu position, which triggered the rally on April 20, which triggered the rally on April 23rd, these time periods align with extreme, mostly political and extrinsic events that have nothing to do with economics that could be coming up in the next few months, including major wars that have happened. Not that we guarantee that will happen again, but the intensity of this time period is likely to increase dramatically, and initially we think it will be very bullish, and longer term, very bearish. That's the story.